So I'm Dr. Julia Myatt, and I'm currently the Acting Dean of Liberal Arts and Natural Sciences.
And I'm Simon Scott, and I'm a lecturer in the Department of Liberal Arts and Natural Sciences.
It's everything. Fundamentally, to me, it's taking what we know we now need in the modern world, which is an understanding and appreciation of different disciplines, taking them out of their silos and enabling students to learn how to integrate them, how to take the good bits, the bad bits, mix them all together and come up with something new and create better ways to approach the big problems that we're going to be facing in the world. So it really is giving them that broad skill set that they need, alongside some key disciplinary knowledge. So they will be also specialists in a key area. For me, a student can expect to be much more knowledgeable about a key area, but crucially, they will also have respect and an appreciation for different disciplines and an understanding of how they work and how to take knowledge from one and apply it to another. And that's something that we often don't see in the working world, where we are building interdisciplinary teams because we know they have great benefits, but they're not always successful because people don't understand how to work with different disciplines. So it's about building that effective team for the workplace.
It's a confidence in different kinds of knowledge, different methodologies, a creative thinking across disciplines, and to a point where you might end up not recognizing disciplines and sort of segregation of disciplines. And just that fluidity of thought, that you're happy, whether it's numbers, data, whether it's ideas, that sort of thing, and you're able not only to think in these different ways, but to be able to bring them together as well. I mean, it will vary with each student, so it depends what the student wants to make of his or her degree. It could be that they want a mix, they want a range of disciplines, or it could be that they want to focus within the social sciences. So it's really up to them, and we don't expect them to have that understanding when they join the department. We don't expect them to have an understanding of where their degree will go, even at the end of the first year. And sometimes much later on in their degree, a student can change and decide that they don't want to focus on this particular major. Maybe they want to focus on a particular research question and look at it from different disciplinary perspectives. So it's a different degree. The degree changes, or the program changes with each person.
Yeah, I think a really key part of this program is, like you just said there, we don't expect them to come in with any real awareness of where they're going. But I think we all know nowadays that when you leave, you are going out into that working world where you will be expected to have key skills in critical thinking, in how to work in these teams. And yet at university, often we still wait until final year to be saying, right, now you're going to go away and develop your own dissertation or to critically analyse. This programme says, we're not going to wait until final year. Let's take you in your first year where it's all fresh and new, but let's start then, because you can only get better at these skills. You can only get better at crossing disciplines if you practice it. And that's what we're doing right from day one of the first year, is exposing students to these ideas and getting them to practice it before they reach final year, when then they can actually produce something pretty spectacular often and really come up with unique questions to topics that just are phenomenal.
Yeah, and there are a lot of skills that you need to practice, to exercise, to be able to do this. It could be, for example, just attitude, having that respect for different disciplinary approaches, for the respect for the unknown, respect for the value and the contribution that a discipline makes that you might never have considered or know nothing about. Self-awareness as well, the ability to reflect. And there are a lot of soft skills that are just part of being able to think in an interdisciplinary way.
In our core modules, which Simon runs, we really throw them in the deep end in a way, don't we? And it's all about working in interdisciplinary teams and coming up and helping to solve a problem from that very first week in your first year.
Yeah, there's so many examples. So, for example, obvious ones like being able to think and write reflectively, and they do that for assessment. There's a lot of group work, which obviously makes things a lot more tricky. And there's a peer assessment as well, so the ability to critically evaluate people that you've worked with. In one of the modules that we run, the students run their own seminars, so they have to be able to plan a seminar, they have to set the reading, they have to be able to lead it, the discussion, and connect their disciplinary approach with the work that others are doing and their disciplinary approaches. So there are a lot of soft skills that are embedded into the program. Some of them more obviously, we have a reflective writing session, we have a presentation session. Others less obviously, but are just built into the design of the modules themselves.
One really great example is, so the peer assessment, they assess each other, how effective they are in their teams, but not only do they assess each other based on the criteria, but they actually help to design the criteria. And I think that was Simon's idea, and it's a really good one in getting them to think about, well, what does make a good team player? How do I listen to and respect other people? So by creating the criteria that they're marking each other against, I think really embeds those skills in the area. I think the students benefit from the research environment at Birmingham in that they're constantly exposed to research that's going on. A very key part of what we do in LANS is making sure they're aware from, again, first year, not waiting until final year or master's level, of the research seminars, of let's go along and hear this person speak. But not only that, but it's linking them then back to, well, what are you doing and what are you learning? And how has this person done this research in this area? Now you're actually going to use that in your module and in your group project.
Yeah.
And I think that's a key part of bridging the gap. So it's not just this happens here, but you're doing this here. It's how you bring the two together.
And you're learning from the people who are writing the books and the articles that other people are teaching.
I would say actually LANS is in a unique position, sometimes a potentially strange position, because we don't have a clear body of research that happens in our department to link into. It's the whole university. But because of that, what it means is that by showcasing the research the students are doing, and we're very open as a team of staff, because of course they're actually researching disciplines and questions that we don't know about. And I think that makes it easier because they can be the owners of that knowledge. From day one in the first year, they will know more about a lot of subjects than I will know. So by having that openness between the staff and the students, I think they take ownership earlier than in other disciplines where they feel like they're constantly talking to experts.
Yes.
And I think that makes a big difference in then the events we hold.
It's very interesting. I mean, we're constantly pushing students out of their comfort zones. We want the student who studies in the humanities to be as familiar with the sciences and vice versa. Not to have expertise in it, but certainly to have an understanding of it. So the students are constantly out of their comfort zones, and that goes to the same as for us as well. We do actually build this into one of the modules. We changed it recently. Previously, we had taught the sort of traditional way that interdisciplinary modules are taught. We would have experts from across campus coming in, delivering a session, and then the students would write an interdisciplinary essay. And we changed that, and we got rid of all the lectures, and we instead moved to this model where the students run their own seminars. So the student then becomes the group's expert in that disciplinary approach. And we did this because we wanted to make the research an integral part of the module. We wanted the students to be more active, practicing interdisciplinarity rather than just passively attending a lecture. And by making the students the group expert, they're more accountable to the rest of the group, because it might be that someone else writes an essay and include research that they have got from that other student. So they're really held accountable to each other. So this idea of learning from each other was built into the module itself. In this department, absolutely not. There's no convention. I mean, liberal arts departments are very new. Interdisciplinarity is relatively new in the way people are constantly exploring it and developing new ways of teaching it. In this department, it's very innovative, and there's a good culture of creativity and trying out new things. And that culture doesn't just come from the staff; it also comes from the students as well, and a willingness to just get on board and engage with the modules that we're doing.
Yeah, I think a huge part is the fact that because our team of staff are all from different backgrounds and different disciplines, we all come with slightly different approaches, but because we are also interested in this world, we're more open to being like, oh, actually, that is a great idea. Let's try that and apply that. Let's mix that with that. And like you say, because the students kind of get on board this train with us, we're really allowed to try different things, see if they work. If they don't work, how can we amend it for next year? And it really does breed this openness between staff and students and module development. We don't have any history or baggage with our discipline.
Yeah, and we have, it's very important to make sure the students are part of the process of changing the modules, of feeding back what works, what doesn't, making sure we communicate to them the value of what it is we're doing. But when you're trying something new, you're curious to see how well it goes as much as anyone else, because there is no template.
It's building on the strengths of each other and the good bits you can take from different areas and build it all together, because we now have that shared knowledge.
What's really important at staff and student level is the fact that when we have all the students together for the core modules, they think in different ways, they're majoring in different disciplines, so there's a rich diversity amongst the students. And it is the same as well with the staff. I mean, it's coincidental, it's just happened that way, that we've all come from different disciplines. And it does seem sometimes like we're speaking different languages, and what can be the norm in one discipline is something new in another, and there is that,
I think
constant learning.
Because the programmes are so new, and it's a new way of working often for the staff, like you're just saying there, the challenges of working as an interdisciplinary team of staff. What we're learning about how we develop the programme is exactly what we're asking our students to learn about. So we're almost co-learners in this process. We're only a few steps ahead of the students in figuring out how to work well in interdisciplinary teams. So that really helps, because you're closer to what you're asking them to do. I certainly, myself, recently, in fact, this year, reading some of the dissertations and things that are coming out. I mean, some of them I've worked with students on, some of them I haven't. But it triggers things in your mind. They are coming up with new ideas that makes you go, actually, that's a great line of inquiry, and should we pick that up? But what's also nice is by that point, the student can be maybe part of that process with you. So it's not just a case of, I've got this idea from a student, I'm going to run with it. It's, no, let's work on this together. And it is exciting.
We have a lot of project work that drives the research that the students are doing. So it's not simply a case of, have you learnt this book? Have you understood the content? It is a case of letting the students decide what projects they want to work on. So the projects they work on are going to be unique to them. It's going to be different with every group. So it's impossible for me to be an expert in all these different things. But it's not about the content. It is about the way it is synthesized. It's the way it's brought together. So I'm not looking to be an expert. I know the students aren't looking to be experts. It's a case of the project, the problem, being our guide, constantly going back to the problem as a way of developing our understanding. So it is a problem-driven research that we push for, and the problem is going to be different depending on each group. So what we're looking for are ways of thinking and ways of bringing different disciplinary approaches together. Now, I learn from that in two ways. I learn pedagogically, seeing how the students work, seeing examples of good group work and bad group work, and trying to just improve the module each year. But then in my own research as well, maybe there are just certain questions that I find particularly interesting, different ways of approaching that I hadn't considered. As far as whether the students know the impact they're making on what we're doing, for me, pedagogically and in my research, no, they don't. It could just be a throwaway comment, but that's something that I will seize upon. But it happens. And in terms of the teaching, it happens every year. And it happens all the time.
I mean, what next? At the moment, we have core modules in the first and the second year, but there are only 20 credits across each year. And we do great things in those, but we're very aware that that's not enough space to kind of be doing a lot of these skills, particularly thinking about critical theory, research skills. So we're now undertaking development of more optional modules to help the students build on what they learn in the core, but in a more specific and nuanced way. So getting those quantitative versus qualitative skills, understanding the differences and how they might apply them is probably going to be one module.
Yeah.
Things like critical theory, applying different theories. All of these are going to be built into new modules that they can take to really try and build their skill set from the first year again up, ready for their dissertation in the final year.
It's very important as well to think, well, what next? It's always going to change. We started not that long ago with 19 students. We're now expecting to get 84 students coming in. There was a big leap in the number of students that joined last year, and we meet for 2 hours a week. We are trying to do small group work. We're having to adapt, and we've made a lot of changes to the core modules over the last 2 years. Some things have worked well, some things haven't worked. So we are constantly adapting, and of course with the numbers as well, we're going to be changing the delivery. So I think something is wrong if you're doing the same thing year on year. And we're constantly asking the students to reflect, so we do that as well. And we're constantly trying to improve the modules, but also make the modules fit for the next cohort. And that means that we're constantly having to change them as well. So it's a constant reflective process.
Yep.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, both.
Okay.